Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of the Eve Prosper Market Show. I'm your host Lockefox and we're here to talk about the Eve market and Eve news for the next 30 or 45 minutes. So thanks again for tuning in, and let's get straight on to the first part where we talk about show news. Where we talk about the show news to the dulcet view of Jita Undock. We'll try to do Amar Undock next week, but we'll see what happens. Just some quick reminders. If you want to interact with the show, the best place to do so is on the Tweetfleet Slack server. Information to join will be in the links below. Come join the Prosper channel if you guys want to talk to me outside of the show. Also, if you are not a video guy, or you want to take Prosper on the run, we have started publishing a podcast feed. It is still not on iTunes, but it is on the Eve podcast mega feeds, so I do need to fix that, but I've had trouble trying to get synced up with iTunes, and I haven't had a whole bunch of time. So I'll keep working on it, hopefully soon, but no promises. Moving on, we're about to hit a subscriber milestone on YouTube. Last I checked, we were at 985 subscribers, and so as I expect us to hit 1,000 next week. And as such, I expect that we will give away Plex or two. So go ahead and keep tuned. We will do one live on the air and one for the YouTube subscribers. So keep tuned there for details in the next week or so. Also, if you want to support the show, all you have to remember is Eve Prosper. That will get you to Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, blog, and our Patreon. If you appreciate what we do, we sincerely appreciate your support. We have a few new patrons this week. We have a returning patron, Benji, along with new patrons, Jack Dancer, Emma, Dominic, Hayden, and Tyler Jolly. And your guys' support means a lot to us. The show does take a lot of effort and a lot of hands, and your support is sincerely appreciated. With that, I actually have one other piece of news, is that we finally got listed as a fan site. Do you see that? We are an official Eve fan site. I gotta thank CCP Logibro for finally getting us listed. I probably have to thank CCP Quant for kicking some butt. It's either that or Feridian. I'm really thankful for that. It's been a long time I've wanted to try and get that, so it's a huge goal of mine achieved. So thanks for supporting the show and tuning in. It's a huge honor. But with that, with enough patting myself on the back and talking about the show and stuff and screwing up, which YouTube is totally going to miss, but they won't miss this. Let's go straight on to the news. First thing in the news this week is I want to talk about Cap Stable has launched a couple of new shows. They're doing a whole website redesign and redeploy. If you saw the 07 show, they did a big announcement there, but TLDR is they're adding a CSM Watch show where they will talk with CSM and talk about CSM as a bit of a news hour. And also, they're releasing a French version of their show between Bach, and I don't know who the other host is, but it's not just going to be a rehash of the main show, but its own mostly independent show. So if you are into any of that, I sincerely endorse those guys over there. Also, in other news, Burn Amar is coming up soon, trademark. I was sort of under the impression it would start this weekend, but things may or may not be moving. I haven't been able to keep my ear to the ground this week for in-game news, because of a really, really, really busy real life this week, but we should expect some news from Burn Amar in the upcoming weeks, and I'll talk about some investment strategies that we expect to see as we go forward. Moving on, the Plex for Good initiative has been extended until the 24th. Be sure to check out things like I know Chance Ravine was doing a matching program up to 100 Plex, and I don't know if he actually hit his target. Also, there is a charity auction going on. If you go check the Eve News site, there are 4 or 5 lots worth of goodies to go bid on, and it's for a good cause, so go check that out. As of earlier this week, they're saying that they had donated, players had donated over 4,000 Plex and a total of $61,000 US dollars. So that is pretty neat. If you guys can give, I sincerely encourage you to give. So it's a great cause, and it's a great opportunity for the community to do outreach to those who need it. So keep on keeping on there. The other big piece of news has been Citadels. They have renamed the market and trade structures to Citadels. They're still going to get size classes, and there's a ton in that dev blog to talk about. I only got a cursory glance at the thing, but they're talking about the scales of things and how these are going to be your most secure structures, and if you're wanting to speculate into structures about where they're going to fit in the meta and how they're going to behave, and if you're really interested in this particular subset of the game, I strongly suggest you go check out the latest dev blog about it, because there is a ton of information in there, and I only got the simplest of glances, but things like the defense systems were covered, the sizes were covered, and the reinforcement strategies were covered, which are all going to be important to structures as a whole. So make sure to go check that out and give feedback. With that out of the way and no other big news to report, let's go straight into Plex. We're seeing Plex continue its rise. As of tonight, I think we're at 880. Maybe up to 890. I would expect that by the time the Plex for Good initiative ends, we'll be just about at 900. But I also expect that high to be temporary. So, the prediction I'm going to lock in, so, and you guys know how good I am at these predictions, so 50-50, is that I expect us to track up to 900 until the end of the Plex for Good sale, maybe go up to 920, but I expect us to slide down to 850 by the time FozzieSov launches. So that's sort of the arc I expect. We might stay steady at 870 instead. So predicting a downfall is risky is risky for me to do. But right now, I think the prices are a little too high for the actual value. And again, just to some perspective, if we take the 1-year view, we're still in decent territory. Yeah, it's a strong and fast climb, but we have a lot of room to go to get to 1 billion. And I mean, I expect us to hit 1 billion by the end of this year again, and I expect 1 billion to be the stable price by the end of this year. But we still have 6 months to go through, so we'll see how it goes. I think we're at a little bit of an unstable high at the moment. I think volumes are a little bit on the weak side, but we could go either way. Checking out the buy and sell margins, we're seeing upward momentum, but again, it's not super strong. And then if we check against other RMT tokens, we're seeing the gap close in the multiple pilot training certificate. We're seeing the spread start to close. But this might just be that buy orders are eking up more so than the sell orders really moving. And also the pilot's body resculpt certificates remain low, and we sort of expect them to be. So, moving on to minerals. Tritanium has bottomed out, it looks like, and we're settling in at 5.2. Again, this could be a temporary place to be. We saw it's a similar pattern at 5.4, so we could fall again. I think it's unlikely, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that we could be heading for 5.0 in the upcoming weeks. with as much weakness as there is in the capital markets and with new ores, meaning that nullsec is coming to JITA less, we may see high-sec miners continue to push an oversupply on TRIT. So if we look at Pyrite, it's cruising for another fall. We're almost to 11 even, and I expect us to level out at 11 even, but we could fall all the way out to 10.8. So keep an eye on that. I'm not really sure, again, where the floor is going to be on this. We're underneath all of the indicators. Again, I think that 11 is a decent floor, but we could crash through that. Mexilon looks like it finally found its floor at 45, which I'm glad to see because it was getting really hard to predict. It's still tracking all of our flags, so this one's a particular mess. With it bottoming out at 45, I think this is a decent opportunity to buy in if you wanted to speculate. But I would also caution that the cash out period for this, you're going to have to hold on to it until probably the late fall. What this bet would be, if you wanted to buy in, is that when the super rebalance is announced, that the response will be positive. That's what this buy-in would mean for you if you wanted to buy in. Again, it's risky. They could go either way. I have faith in CCP to not screw up supers because there are a lot of old players, and supers kind of end up being a place where a lot of older players end up, and burning that bridge could be really dangerous. But this is a decent place to buy in. That's my speculator hat. Now, if you're holding my feet to the fire, you would also notice I told you to buy in on P4s from PI, and they have stayed flat or fallen since I made that prediction. So I still think that's a decent place to be. I think it's ripe for a big bump once structures actually start rolling out, but you're going to have a lot of patience. Moving on to Isogen. Isogen's staying very stable. There's not a lot to report about here. We saw a slight dip yesterday, but it should be recovered by today. Noxium is starting to fall again, and looks like we're heading to 550. I don't expect it to fall much further than 550, but and I expect it to stay relatively stable at 550. But with as much downward pressure as we've seen in minerals, it could continue to fall. Zydrine is staying relatively stable at 1200. Nothing interesting really to report here. And Megasite is also staying rather stable at 2100. And no reason to think it would go either way. It could fall slightly in the upcoming weeks, but we're talking very small changes off the current normal. Lastly, Morphite is super stable, like stable as a rock. And I'm finding that interesting with how low the volumes seem to be. So we saw a couple of weeks back a spike in the volume, tracking the price up. But we're seeing a lull in volume this week, and prices staying locked in where they are. Again, I keep predicting that we're going to see a T2 revival, but until nullsec really starts grinding on itself, then we won't see much in the way of T2 movement, so just keep that in mind. And then a whole look at the mineral markets. Looks like things are relatively stable. We're seeing downward pressure on Isogen. We're seeing downward pressure on Noxium. Some downward pressure on Mexilon. Rather stable pressure on Tritanium, and we're stable most everywhere else. So that's what I'm seeing here. And Morphite actually could be tracking up in the next couple of days. So let me revise that. This might just be a local spike, but looks like the prices are going up and might overcorrect. So keep an eye on Morphite. Moving on to fuel. Amar isotopes are amazingly hot right now. And this is because of the Burn Amar event. With Goonswarm, the Imperium, as they are calling themselves now, running around Amar space, causing trouble. Amar ice is becoming very hotly contested. We see it now spiking over Caldari isotopes, which go into science and research pauses. This is an amazingly unstable position for isotopes. So if you have helium isotopes and you bought them back a few weeks ago when the trend started, sell. Sell them right now. Sell them and count your money at the bank. If you're needing Amar isotopes, then I'm sorry, there's nothing I can really do about it, but the prices should overcorrect down. We might see prices south of 600 after burn Amar, so keep an eye out for that. Also, fuel blocks are trending up in line with their isotopes. Again, we're seeing Amar fuel blocks over Caldari ones, which is extremely strange. We also saw a quick blip of Galente fuel blocks spiking over. Now, this could be that Caldari fuel blocks are undervalued at the moment, it looks like, slightly. But with Amar isotopes as high as they are, expect Amar fuel blocks to track that exactly. If we take a closer look at helium isotopes, we can see the unstable pressure north of 800 and that bubble popping as we head back down to a more stable 750. I still think the stable price is down here at 650, so I still think it's grossly overvalued. But if you have it and you can sell it, go sell it and make some money. And Amar fuel blocks are also tracking the same way. We saw them peak up to 16K, and now they're back down at 11,550. Excuse me, not 11. Now we see them down at 15,500. Again, we are grossly overvalued at the moment. I think that 15,000 is a far more stable price, and if you can build them and make some money, again, go make some money. Moving on to our outliers, we're going to start where we started last week and talk about the Genelution implants, which we're still tracking. Again, the story is pretty stark on the CA3s and 4s because of the new announcement. The prices have crashed through the floor. I expect them to stay there. This would be a great chance to buy them up to see if you can speculate into the end of the year. But again, expect prices to stay low for the next few months. So I would not be in a hurry to buy, and definitely you're not going to be in a hurry to sell. The more interesting part is when we look at the CA1 and CA2 implants, we're seeing some pretty steep downward pressure on the CA1s, and I would expect the CA2s to follow suit pretty soon here. So if you took my advice a few weeks back to buy CA1s and CA2s because of a local minimum, then sell. You should have sold last week when I told you to sell last week. But if you are holding on to CA1s and CA2s, this weekend is going to be the last chance you get to sell them off for a decent profit margin. And if we look at the charts, we can see the same behavior. On the CA1s, we're seeing a gross instability here in the high prices north of 1.2 million. Excuse me, 120 million. Same here on the CA2s. Again, we're seeing switches. We're seeing flags that the price is coming down. So get out if you got in. This bubble is almost over. And the CA3s and CA4s absolutely break the tools. So, again, the prices are in the floor. I would expect this would be a great chance to buy in, but you're going to be holding on to these for a while. Moving on to Moon Materials, we're seeing Ferrogel has been taking a pretty steep fall for the last few weeks, and it looks like it's bottomed out just north of 26K. No reason to think this would fall much further, but like I've said for the last 3 months, we've been seeing a lot of weakness in the T2 markets, and expect prices to sort of stair-step their way down as moon reactors jump out of the business. A interesting bubble that we're seeing is hypersynaptic fibers took a big jump. They added about 2K per unit onto them. This is unfounded. This has me super nervous. We see a very weak, volumes here, and I don't think the price is at all stable. Now, if you have hypersynaptic fibers, I would sell them. And if you are reacting them, I would try to get them to market to sell them, because I expect this bubble to pop over the weekend. If you want to speculate, though, this would be a good one to watch for overcorrection. If it falls below 9,000, I would expect it to rebound back up to that 9,000 level reasonably quickly. So this would be a good chance to play the bounce as it falls again. Another one that's been a bright spot has been Fullerides. Again, this is a middle tier sort of product, and they have been tracking up pretty hot. We've risen from 520 to 580, and we're still showing pressure upwards. We're getting close to the top of this one. Again, if you have Fullerides, this would be a great chance to sell. And again, I think they're overvalued. I think that 530 is about a stable price here. I think they're grossly overvalued. This would be a great chance to get out if you're in. I don't expect the prices to keep climbing. And then the last one, which is a low-end product, is Silaramic Fibers have been tracking up. They've gone from 210 to 220. Again, I think this is speculative. I don't think there's a lot of reality behind this. This one's an easier one to react, so I expect the prices to reset by the end of the weekend. But we also saw some trends a couple of months ago that had Silaramic Fibers climbing a lot longer than I expected. So keep an eye on this one. It could still climb up to 230, but that's a pretty risky bet. Moving on to the Moon products themselves, Platinum has taken a steep dive down. So expect this to affect... Oh, I want to say nanotransistors, but it's not. No, well, it is, but that's not the main component. Platinum's taking a pretty steep dive down. I would expect the prices to rebound up to 3,000, but again, the trend is going to be a downward one, and you might be waiting a while for Moon Goo to turn around, so I wouldn't really suggest speculating here. Also, as we move out of Moon products and into PI products, the only one I have to highlight this week is Robotics, which is continuing its tear downwards to 60K. We're down in very unstable low territory, and I would expect it to be bottoming out soon. Again, this is going to be a risky bet. I would usually call this a buy, but with the structures announcements on the horizon and the fuel situation still kind of in the air, this is a risky bet. It's probably a good risky bet because I don't think we can go much south of 60K. So this would be a great chance to go put in some stopping buy orders, some rather low buy orders that if they get filled, then you'll be very happy about it. But if they don't get filled, you don't care. Those kind of orders. That's what I expect to see here. Moving on, let's talk about data core plasma physics. It looks like Minmatar faction warfare is cashing out. These have fallen dramatically over the last week, and we can see a huge sell-off last weekend. So if you are in the market for Minmatar faction goods, this is the time to go buy them. This would be a great chance to buy Minmatar target painters, Stabber fleet issues, the Firetail, which we'll talk about in a minute, Minmatar data cores. All of these things are going to be depressed for the next couple of weeks, and this would be a great chance to jump in and in a couple of weeks either sell or use them if you need to use them. Prices are going to be down, and I expect them to be down for the next week or so. Another one that I'm putting on the radar for people for speculation is T3 components, the products that go into T3. So right now we're looking at fulloferrocene power conduits, and I expect the prices to dip through the duration of... Well, no, sorry. I expect prices to stay relatively low into Burnham-Mar. I expect them to dip during the weekend following Burnham-Mar, and I expect T3 products to follow that dip. So right now, we aren't seeing many waves in the final T3 products, but we are seeing waves in the things that make T3. So this would be a great chance to speculate if you're a T3 producer. It's a great chance to get a lot of cheap components. Expect the prices of the end products to stay low, so you may have to hold on to product. But the weekend after Burnham-Mar, things should start to recover, and you can make a pretty decent margin for the waiting. Moving on to ships, the Macarial has continued its track upwards. I've brought this up a couple of times in the last few weeks that faction battleships have been trending up. So things like the Rattlesnake, the Macarial, the Vindicator, these have all been tracking up. I'm not exactly sure. The volumes seem a little bit high, but not enough to really trip anything. This is probably due to the change in high-end mineral value, but I would have expected this to top out already. So right now the prices look like they've peaked and they're going to come falling down. So if you have a Macarial to sell, this would be a great chance to sell. Unless you have an expensive Macarial, then it sucks to be you. I expect the prices to come back down, but I don't know when, and I don't know by how much. Also, the Nightmare is showing a similar pattern. I think this recent peak is particularly high, but I expect the prices to come back down a little bit. If you're in the market for a Nightmare, it might be a chance to hold off. And again, I would wait until the Burnham-Mar is finished. You might be able to get a deal on one that as people come rushing back to the market. The Republic Fleet Firetail is next, and we saw a dip at the same time we saw the dip in Plasma Data Cores. And it has since recovered, so perhaps this one is not a chance to go buy in, but it could double dip. So keep an eye on Firetails into the next weekend. I don't know if the Minotaur guys are finished cashing out. When Caldari does it, it usually lasts 3 weeks, and I know when Galente do it, it tends to last a little over 2 weeks. But I don't really know how long Minotaur guys tend to do cash out. So I'd expect it to go down again this weekend, and then maybe rebound the following weekend. Another interesting one, which I still think is undervalued, is the Crane. We saw a big jump up around the patch, but then it's been falling, and I think it's overcorrected. It's probably overproduced at the moment. It'd be a great chance to jump in and buy some if you wanted to speculate, but again, knowing that T2 material markets are so weak, it's a risky bet because it could just stay level instead of rising. So keep an eye out on that. Excuse me. Moving on to Loki Electronics Emergent Locust Analyzer. Now, we saw this week flagged a few of the T3 subcomponents, the subsystems, excuse me. And the prices are tracking down quite sharply. Now, the volumes aren't that high, and we've been seeing weakness in the T3 market since the start of the year. So this might be a good chance to buy in if you need it, but I would not speculate on it because I think the prices are going to fall again into Burnham-Mar, actually after Burnham-Mar, and then they'll rebound again after that. So I don't think it's time to buy quite yet if you wanted to speculate. Also, Proteus Electronics CPU efficiency gate is showing a similar downward trend, but again, I don't think we're at the bottom yet, so keep an eye on this one. Another interesting one, I know I brought this up a couple of weeks ago, was multi-frequency XL. Volumes are not high at all. Volumes are extremely low, but the prices keep tracking up. Now, this could be because of high-end, the price of high-ends, but right now we've jumped up without a corresponding jump in mineral prices. So I think we're overvalued at the moment. I know that this is kind of a weird one to highlight because the volumes are so low, and if you're a capital pilot, then you're probably going to be flying faction crystals anyway, because why the hell wouldn't you? But that's where we are on this one. I thought it was an interesting one to highlight again. And then I believe this is the last one. I know I highlight these every week, and I'm starting to think that I need to speculate in them myself. High-grade snake alphas are tracking way low, and I think that if you needed a high-grade snake alpha, this is the time to buy. So this is an extremely low price. If you wanted to assemble pirate implant sets, this would be a great chance to stock up on the alpha implant, and it does look like we do a little bit of rotating through the implant sets that you can buy, some of them cheaper some weeks and some of them other weeks, you know. So this would be a great chance to buy in if that's your thing. And lastly, we end with the prediction review, where I go through and figure out if I'm actually right or not on some of this stuff. First, I highlighted the 425mm railgun 2s last week, thinking that this price was high and going to come down. And I was wrong. We've stayed relatively stable. This is probably due to the cost of the main component, the 425mm railgun 1. But again, prices should stay stable. I think it's a little overpriced. I think we'll come down a few percentage points, but I think we're relatively stable. So if you've got a chance to sell some, this would be a great chance to go sell some. Demand does not seem to be that high, though, so I wouldn't get into production, and I don't think anybody's using them as a meta at the moment. And lastly, the darling that I keep bringing up and thinking I won't have to bring it up again is the Echelon. We were coming into a lull last week, and I said that the action was over, and I was wrong. It popped up again. Again, we're only ever seeing like 5 to 10 sell in a week. But man, that thing is a roller coaster, and this would be a great one to jump on if you were patient enough to try and ride that roller coaster. This Echelon thing is starting to piss me off. Thanks again for tuning into the Eve Prosper Market Show. Again, I am your host, Lockefox. If you want to tune into this show, all you have to remember is Eve Prosper. You can find us on Twitter and Twitch and YouTube and at eveprosper.com, where you can listen to the podcast. If you want to tune in live, we're on Twitch at 0200 Friday night. Come in and watch the show live. We really do appreciate it. If you can't tune in live, make sure you're subscribed to our other channels. If you want to interact with the show off the air, come join us on the Tweetfleet Slack server. Information will be in the links below. That's the best place to get in touch with me and with everybody else who helps make this show possible. And if you want to support what we do accept. I mean, ISK donations are always accepted, but if you want to give a little bit more, we have a Patreon open where you can donate to the show. Every bit is greatly appreciated, and it goes to cover our costs to edit the show and get the people who support the back end covered for their troubles. So thanks again for tuning in. Again, I am your host, Lockefox, and I will see you all next week.